Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. What do you think of the new selfie stick? It probably seems about the same as before. Before the previous one broke, because as far as you lot are concerned, there is no difference. As far as I'm concerned though, yeah, I mean, seems to be quite something, especially the guy was, you know, who just saw me this right now, was extremely happy because, you know, I asked, do you sell selfie sticks in here or not? He was like, yes, absolutely, you know, these are, you know, in fact, we've got some amazing ones, you know. He was like, because he said he was excited because no one ever orders them anymore, so, and that is true, because we went to a couple of other places first, and then they just weren't for sale anymore, and there was a time when, you know, they were everywhere. By the way, another alteration, I was going to say, times are changing, precisely. This, I'm pretty sure, is new. Oh, I thought they were saying hola to me. I'm so used to if anyone sees me filming that is of a certain age, then, you know, they end up either saying hello or staring or something. But yeah, there you go. All right. So down this way we go. I was down this path yesterday, but I think I'll take the same route as before. Not sure how far I'll get though. Actually, now I think about it, I'll go a different direction because we've got next week as well, and I've got some stuff to cover, and then afterwards I have a D&D session to get to, so might as well speed things along, let's say, because yeah, we've just come up from watching a movie. You know what that means? I'm going to talk about it incessantly for some time. But first, let's talk about something that most people who are watching this Walking Wednesday at the moment will already know about, and that is the wedding that I, and again most of the people watching this right now, have attended recently. In fact, the day before, we end up right back here in Galicia. You know, because I'm, yeah, I never stay in the UK anymore for, you know, 1 or maybe 2 weeks of that. Now, otherwise I'm in Spain all the time, obviously. Yeah, but while I was there, you know, one of the major things we were making sure that we were prepared for, and that I was, you know, and that I was around for in the first place, was in fact, you know, my cousin's wedding. And boy, am I glad that I was. Not that I would ever, you know, have missed it anyway, if it ended up being a horrible event, but it wasn't a horrible event. So that's just the extra cherry on top, I suppose. Quite an interesting setup they actually had going on, basically, because yeah, it was in a somewhat remote location. I hesitate to call what we were in a chapel, but I guess that's the most apt comparison, I suppose. Mostly because it was, you know, it was a classic. It wasn't, you know, a religious wedding. It was a registry office situation. In fact, actually, was the lady officiating the ceremony gave a legal disclaimer that the company she represented was legally, you know, authorized to perform marriages under, you know, subsection 32C paragraph D or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, it was all very official then, but then obviously, you know, things proceeded as one would somewhat expect. It was less of an I do situation, more of an I am, as far as the questions went. You know, it's like, are you legally able and capable and willing to take this person as your husband or wife? And as they say, you know, I am versus that. So I'm guessing they have, you know, their own stuff, because it was, you know, obviously there were no hymns or scriptures that were inserted into the ceremony. Which, you know, I mean, I kind of miss the singing aspect of weddings that they just insert halfway through when you're going the church route. But, you know, that's just me, obviously. You know, But I was not the only cousin there that is that searches for any excuse to to sing, because yeah, that is a running gag that one of my other cousins has, and collaborating with yet another cousin who is a musician. In fact, actually, well, no, you lot know that cousin, as in by you lot I mean people who've watched this channel, because he's featured in a couple of videos, including one where I collaborated with him in 2017. So you know, I got there first. Anyway, that's so I got to see all of them, you know, and obviously more people. In fact, there were some that I haven't actually seen for quite some time, actually, and that's not just because I've been away. I mean that, you know, we haven't you know, coincided, or just in general, I guess any of the gatherings that I might have been around for, they weren't, and vice versa. You know, it's not like anyone is you know, super awkward around each other or anything. At least not for right now. You never know with the new marriage dynamic coming in. It's entirely possible, but I somewhat doubt it. For everyone that I've met there, or the new people that I was unfamiliar with, absolutely, you know, no qualms and complaints about them. And vice versa, I'm pretty sure. Although then again, they wouldn't have said to my face, I assume. But yeah, I seem to get around with, you know, most people. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, see, you know, people of a certain age, that's the crowd that tends to pay attention whenever you're filming, especially in public. Everyone else just you know, ignores you and looks at you weirdly. Right, which direction do I go now, because the road is somewhat coming to an end here. Oh wait, no, there's a zebra crossing. I can trail back. That's fine. Yeah. So what was I saying? Oh yes. Yes, wedding stuff. Yeah. So yeah. So first of all, we had, you know, well, first of all was, you know, conversation mingling time. Then was the actual ceremony. Then was more mingling time. Then there was 3.5 hours worth of time for dinner, which I mean, that was that felt excessive at the time, but that's but I get, you know, it obviously depends. You know, I've come to understand that when people are imbibing alcohol, that they require more time in general to you know, finish up. Let's put it that way. And I guess a lot of them were preparing for the long hours of disco that came afterwards. Because yeah, there were a couple of like other buildings. There was the chapel. There was and then you know, then they cleared us out of there, and then they were, I guess while dinner was going on, they were preparing the area for disco. One thing that happened actually in the dinner was that they had these like small cards that were on there where you say, you know, name such and such, I have come in from place, and my advice for a long and you know, healthy marriage or happy marriage or whatever they said was, you know, and then it gave you 4 lines worth of you know, space to say something, and the 4 lines is weirdly important to the story. so afterwards, well, I think it was like, that was before the appetizers. So all we had the appetizers. One of the event organizers went and, you know, started to, you know, collect them, basically, and then went through them, because it then became clear, oh, some of these are going to be read out. I thought there was a chance that all of them would have been read out, but I mean, obviously that would be, you know, mad, because there were so many of us. In fact, they actually spoofed that in an episode of BBC Sherlock, if anyone remembers, where you know, obviously Sherlock as best man is you know, is going through all of those as part of tradition, but he is very uncomfortable reading out some of the stuff that some of the, like, you know, heartfelt, lovey-dovey stuff. Was less of an advice for marriage. In that case, it was more of a well wishes. And so he just starts going, all right, okay, kisses, love, kisses, ooh, hugs and kisses, that kind of thing. And just casually disregarding how repetitive everyone actually was, which somewhat ended up happening again. Because in terms of advice, or in terms of weddings in general, you kind of get the same sort of running gags, let's say, that are perpetuated, you know, marriages. You know how boomer humor is very focused on, you know, hating your spouse tropes. There's not really a hating your spouse. It's more of a, you know, casual dig at your spouse based on the jokes that have been made previously. By which I mean that one of the things that the groom said was that he said, you know, I'm going to take this chance to speak to everyone before I spend the next 50 years listening. Which, you know, fun line and whatever, you know, obviously not meant to be taken seriously, because as far as, not that I've seen them together too much, but, you know, they seem to be another person, you know. But yeah, like, not that I've seen them together too much, but they seem to be a fairly, you know, equal partnership. I would definitely think so. There's a car coming, there's two cars coming actually, so I'm going to stay here and talk for a bit. So it's awkward when this happens. It's walking Wednesday, not standing still Wednesday, come on. Alright, and then one other car went down there. Another car that was in the way is now coming this way. And, oh, there's a dog now. Another car signaling that's about to exit from parking. And the car that was coming this way is apparently actually turning around and not actually going down the street that I am. And the third car, behind the car that just came out of parking, and also behind the first car that is reversing now into that particular area, even though I thought she was going to go somewhere else. Oh wait, no, it's because there's a fourth car that's coming up now from the same direction that the first car came in. The lady's trying to get out of the way before turning around, I guess. And the fourth car, I think, is also... No, the fourth car's just parking, okay. Classic thing of Spanish people, you know, parking in front of gaping exits, let's say. Okay, this is a mess. I'm gonna wait until the dog goes past, and then I will continue. All right. Anyways, I've completely lost the plot now. Yes. So, running gags. The reason I say that is because first message. Well, I think that no, was it the first message? It wasn't the first message. It was definitely one of them in there. I think it was like it was written by a kid who, by the way, turns out that the guy didn't mean that he was going to read out the messages. He meant that the people involved, you know, called up their names and said, "Please read out your messages." Another thing to remember for the story. Okay, all the cars have gone now except for the fourth one that's stationary, so I'm going. Right. So, so yeah. Then, oh, fifth car. Okay, I'm gonna trail back again. This particular street, like, look at this street. You wouldn't think it would be that busy, would you? But I guess because it's, you know, there's one available lane, I suppose. I'm just gonna squeeze through this car here. Why not? There we go. Right. So yeah, the kid read out, you know, congratulations, something like that. Lots of, which I remember that timestamp. I said the bride's name by accident. I don't know if they want to be named in this video or not. But anyway, bride is right was the last bit of that message. And then the guy said, the officiator, not the officiator, but the organizer, said something like, oh, you know, 25% of the messages were, you know, bride is right, or some variant of that. So again, running gags that, you know, keep coming up. You know, it's just as well that the groom found, you know, a spin on the message because everyone else seemed to think of the same thing. So there were a couple of messages that were, read up by the same people who wrote them, and then it got to the last card, mine. So, and this is where things could have easily gone horribly wrong, because when once the guy had located me and was approaching me, microphone still in hand, talking to everyone, he went up to me and went, "This is good." And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you." Like, "No, this is really good, like really good." I was like, "Okay, all right, thank you very much." But the problem with that is that, signed as a precedent. I remember one of my other cousins that I talked to said that he remembered something from a previous family gathering, because I made a speech, and he remembered that it was there was a very good speech, and he said, "Oh, as soon as I heard your name called out, I thought, okay, we're in for something good here." So I already have a reputation, and on top of that, this was hyped up to no end. And what was hyped up, I did read it out, people did appreciate it, especially them. What I did, remember I said the 4 lines were important? That's because what I said in those, what I did in those 4 lines was I made a poem. Couple of rhyming couplets, classic AABB quartet, that kind of thing. Nothing super extravagant, but I knew that Groom would appreciate that because previously I promised him a song. So for various reasons, and I actually had prepared like a demo of like half of a song that I did over the course of whenever he was visiting. We were visiting our nan actually at the time. But yeah, he had to go, and before I was like, "Oh, before you go, here's what I did." He was very impressed by it. I never actually finished the song. It lost its moment to be relevant, and nothing came of it. But from that, I remember that he really appreciated, my lyrical or poetic capabilities. So I thought, okay, I'll do something like this. He'll get a kick out of it. Fantastic. He'll get a kick out of it. Possibly she would as well. The entire crowd, not necessarily. That's why I said it could have gone very wrong, because it was a case of, okay, so it's hyped this up for everyone. Because I think one of the main reasons why, like my most talked about speech in the family, because I've done a couple, was when I was asked to speak about my experience doing Duke of Edinburgh Award, because there was the big reunion. I think I told the story before on Walking Wednesday, but there's big reunion of different schools at the second school that I hadn't been to before, and obviously as the PE teacher was responsible for organising Duke of Edinburgh at the time, he asked me to talk about floor Quidditch actually, which is my adaptation of Quidditch that I made before I realised that Muggle Quidditch was a thing, and now called Quadball, obviously. But my experience adapting that, what the appeal that it has for different people who don't do that many sports, myself included. A little bit about that. So it's my only time discussing anything sports related. Obviously Harry Potter theme, because what else do you expect from me? And yeah, I turned it into, I had a lot of jokes. I had a whole routine worked out, but I think the reason why it worked so well, partly, is because it was such a surprise. It was built up to the degree that, well, no, it wasn't built up at all. That's what I mean, because there was one person who spoke before me at that moment. A girl from a different school, talking about the expedition part, and it very much felt like, okay, this is this is my summary. I've got an extra microphone. I'm being amplified by 2 other microphones right now. I am very nervous. I'm going to say things like this. This is what happened. It's almost like an essay, and that's it. So the precedent was that everyone was nervous at the time. I end up going second, which, if you remember from discussing my pitch for Siren Story back at university, having me go second when it comes to presenting things usually tips the scales a little bit. So you know, the principal of the school asked me, "Oh, do you need this extra microphone?" I said, "Oh no, don't worry about it. You know, feel like a TV interview otherwise." Something to that effect, basically. But that joke broke the ice. And then I had like a whole thing where I pretend like I actually got the shopping list by accident. I actually did the proper prepared speech rather than the part I've rehearsed. And you know, and then afterwards, everyone was trying to add extra jokes, and all of the people after me, except, including the guest speaker from the charity financing the event, ended up referencing, okay, well, we've got a tough act to follow. The charity guy got the biggest round of applause of the night, but I definitely got the second. So, you know, there's that. And even the people from like the homeschool, they tried to turn their bit into like, you know, because there was 2 of them, so they tried to turn that bit into like a comedy routine of some kind, and they end up being shooed away by the very principal of the school. So, again, going second at tipping the scales, because I feel like I've worked out how to make stuff memorable most of the time, if it's intended to be performed or to be spoken in front of people, unlike the card that was meant just for them. So I'm relieved it worked out, and people, you know, did say, "Oh, you know, that was wonderful. How long did that, you know, take you and such?" And I said, "Well, you know, the time between realizing the cards were there and the appetizer being served. That's my only metric I had." So yeah, and then after all of that rigmarole, there was the rest of the meal, and there was and then the disco happened, and that was the main part. The twist here was that they had almost what looked like pool floats, but actually glow sticks that you could turn on. Dual wielding those while dancing is exceptional. I recommend it to all. Until supplies ran out, because I kept on giving away hardware, one of mine, then picking up a second one and whatnot. Yeah, I also saw 2 people actually, you know, who were hesitant to start dancing, actually, you know, decide to do so. One was the youngest cousin I've talked about before. You know, she actually said she didn't like dancing, but randomly towards the end, she suddenly decided, okay, you know, let's go ahead and do that, and there's dancing in a group. So that worked out exceptionally. But then there was another cousin who I remember once said was envious of my decision of my you know, eternal drive in any disco situation to actually just, you know, go out there, dance like mad, do something crazy, and not be afraid to make a fool of myself, which I have enough had to make a fool of myself on this channel alone, so, you know, that doesn't faze me at all. So, much less, you know, people staring my life film on the streets, and sometimes, you know, yelling stuff into the camera, as you've observed today. So yeah. Oh, one of the places that didn't have a selfie stick. Ironic, I've ended up in the same location. Yeah, but yeah, saying that because you know, that's cousin who mentioned that before, you know, after a while, you know, he actually joined in as well, along with I think one of his close friends and some of the close friends of bride and groom as well. So again, worked out, and yeah, that was one of like the main groups that stayed on the dance floor and kept on returning. So yeah, everyone was really happy, which is obviously exactly what you want. So, you know, no complaints here. And then soon after that was the last event of the night was supposed to be carriages, apparently. But we left about an hour before that was supposed to be because we wanted to get, wanted to beat the traffic or, not worry about getting back super late because we had the flights the following day. So, turns out carriages just meant, people leave at this time rather than, that they were going to end up leaving on a carriage or something. In fact, it's my understanding that bride and groom actually stayed at a place that was near the event, possibly because they didn't trust their friends not to do one of those pranks of trying to hide the keys or tying the empty cans that always seem to appear out of nowhere, that kind of thing. So yeah, they had it all thought out, and we all had a fantastic time. So there you have it, really. And then after that, we had the next day we had another flight, and we came back to Spain. And since then, it's been mostly beach walks and watching sunsets and whatnot. The classic thing we do every year. That's really my kind of speed. More so than the Europe trips that I do with friends and whatnot. This is definitely what I like in a place that I like. So, why I always make sure that if I'm available, which I usually am, I'm here. So yeah. That being said, of course, I've had a few of the usual signal problems, although the detachable internet we have this time is a little bit better than before. For tonight, for D&D, I might actually just move it. Because, yeah, by the way, another thing's happening tonight is D&D. So, yeah, and not to mention, of course, Wednesday is Spectator's Day at the cinema we always go to. And finally, after it's probably been in the title of the video, I'll talk a little bit about How to Train Your Dragon. Because that's what we went to see. I was like, oh, they made a new How to Train Your Dragon. I thought that after Trilogy would there, there's going to be a fourth one. I completely forgot that I actually saw a video ages ago talking about a live-action remake. Mostly complaining about, mostly pointing out people had complaints about the casting of the movie, because that usually seems to be the case when it comes to live-action adaptations. I mean, of all the things that they decided to make changes on, most of the time it is in terms of who one would expect to be cast in the movie. And yeah, lo and behold, it took me about 5 minutes or so of seeing this particular character on screen, but I realized that oh wait, no, that's Nick Frost playing. I don't know his name in the English version because I watched the first How to Train Your Dragon movie like a long time ago. Weirdly enough, I think I watched that in English. It was the second one that I watched in cinemas in Spanish at the time. I think I was still living in Spain when it came out. Yeah, so I don't know. The but yeah, I was like, oh well, yeah, so that's Nick Frost playing Bocón. I don't know his name in English, I forgot, so that's what I'm gonna call him. So yeah, I mean, as far as the movie goes, for the most part, pretty identical structurally and to a certain degree visually to, the original, animated version. And I think part of that is actually because the original one, of course, is a 3D animated movie, so that when it comes to making 3D animated effects for the dragons, they knew what to do because they kind of had the blueprint already there. So essentially, what you ended up with is, to a certain degree, the same movie with updated effects, which I'm surprised is not a trend that has caught on in terms of either 2D or 3D as of yet. I can definitely see sometime in the future, like a re-render of an existing series or something, especially because it has been like a good like at least 15 years since the first animated film came out. So obviously during that time they've had a chance to up the technology. Although again, of course, because it's live action, they tried to update to look a bit more realistic, but they didn't go extremely far. It was definitely more of a case of fixed Sonic versus ugly Sonic. I personally did not find any ugly Sonics in the movie, but who knows? I'm sure that there will be plenty of people who are more qualified to talk about VFX than I am that will say that the CG had some issues or something along those lines. I have no idea. Uncanny Valley didn't really set in because they're dragons. So anyway, by the way, just off topic, this is a hospital, by the way. This is the most sickly looking hospital in existence. Anyway, I'm sure it's been on the inside, but fortunately I've not had any reason to go in there. So yeah, there were a couple of changes that I think I noticed, because again, bear in mind that I've just watched the movie, these are my fresh thoughts, I've not processed much of it yet, but, and then I'm comparing it to something that I saw comparatively much longer ago, trying to piece everything together, in a different language. So, actually wait, no, have I seen, no, I don't think I've seen the first movie in Spanish. No, I definitely haven't. Which is weird, but there you go. So yeah, I mean, there were definitely some changes that I noticed that we're not super extreme, but they definitely added some sort of idea behind it. The one change I think people are going to talk about potentially is that it seems that the people of Isla Mema, or Berk, I remember the name is Berk, of the island, have come from many different Viking tribes over the years, over across various different parts of the world. Because I think one of the complaints that that original video where I forgot that I saw this was happening in the first place mentioned was of the casting of Astrid particularly. First of all, Astrid not being blonde was one of the things that was a huge hold-up, which I feel like they probably could have fixed that fairly easily. Just given her the old hair dye treatment of some kind, assuming it wouldn't damage her hair, or a wig if that was not an option. I don't know. Obviously, last resort digital effects, but they've obviously been doing a lot of those anyway because of the nature of the film that we were making. But yeah, so that part is not really what I'm talking about. There's because I think there was also some concerns. I don't remember exactly what they were, but there was some concerns about the ethnicity of the actress cast for Astrid. I think this was like just when the trailer came out, and Astrid was one of the main characters that was, in the trailer. So yeah, she completely forgot about that aspect. But they kind of covered their ground with that, because what they did was they said, or Stoic said that that based on like where they came from, different parts of the world. He signaled, you there, your families came from the Far East, or this your family came from the sunny realms of etc. etc. Obviously trying to reference Asia and Africa without saying exactly what they were, because you want to invent the geographic locations rather than actively call them out in a movie like that. And that would seem all fine and good. But I'm definitely imagining that at some point someone's going to point out that that none of those characters who were mentioned in that scene actually did that much in the movie. Like they're mentioned as there's like, oh well, guess what? We have this aspect here that covers the extra diversity we have, but that's it. They're seen and not heard for the most part. Or entirely. Did they say anything? I don't think they did. Anyway. So I'm sure that's going to be something people are going to talk about. It did, weirdly enough, tie into Astrid's background, because I think this is a different part. I think this is a change. You know, disregard this if it's not a change or not, but I think one of the things that they added was specifically a reason for Astrid's animosity towards Hiccup. So, you know, because, well, one of the things they did was that they had, I don't remember if the kids particularly, I say kids, we'll get back to that, kids. I don't know if the kids particularly were always on the, I think they were, the water, you know, the fire brigade essentially with the water buckets and whatnot. But they had them, you know, they had them actively insult Hiccup, and one of them said, oh, you know, shouldn't you be in bed, or that kind of thing, you know. Which I mentioned that because it will tie into a couple of things I mentioned later. I've got 10 minutes left before I've got to go. Because again, I said we're going to meet at around 8:30 so I can get back in time to set up the D&D stream. Yeah. So, to rapidly say, Astrid's animosity, like, that's the first scene we get. Astrid's, you know, kind of berating Hiccup, you know, for being the son of the chief and, you know, having a lot of things handed to him because, you know, he wasn't kicked out because of that privileged position and whatnot. And the reason the whole, like, you know, different kingdoms traveling to this one place comes in, or different tribes as they're called, is because it made Astrid's background more of an underdog situation. Because, you know, it was the classic thing of, like, you know, you've had everything handed to you, I've had to scramble for everything, you know, that I have, and you know, that rigmarole, you know the archetype basically. I don't remember her saying that in the original version. Again, she might have done, but I don't know. From the original version, I remember that she was desperate to prove herself and was suspicious of Hiccup for, you know, suddenly improving so quickly, and that's why she followed him and whatnot. But she didn't have that extra, I guess, motivation or extra, again, animosity. I sorry for a different word this time, but yeah, extra animosity towards Hiccup for that reason. So yeah, I think that gave her a little bit more that maybe she didn't need. Maybe it was okay that she was just trying to prove herself for the sake of it, because, you know, Vikings. But you know, I don't know, because, you know, everyone was kind of trying to do that. I guess giving her something, you know, a bit more particular. That wasn't, you know, it didn't diminish her character at all. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, so be it. And again, it kind of, you know, tied in that other aspect that, like I said before, never really came back in any major way. So yeah, with that, I think there were some other changes that I was going to talk about. Oh yes, since I mentioned the whole should you be in bed, should you be in bed thing, that was actually a line that came back right at the end when Hiccup was, you know, obviously left out of commission after the final battle, and that same guy said that right at the very end. I was like, oh, should you be in bed? I was like, ah, there you go. Again, I don't know if that was a change or not, but it felt like it. Because there were some few moments where I was like, okay, these lines are lifted from the other version, but they've added a little bit extra to it. There was also like a part between like Hiccup and Stoic particularly that I think was new, where it's like, oh, we finally got something to talk about. Sat down and they said nothing for some time. You know, that slight, you know, awkwardness between them. For starters, by the way, Stoic was perfect casting and perfect dubbing, I should say, as well, considering the version that I watched. So if I had to think of an MVP in terms of the casting, that would definitely be him. Gerard Butler, I believe it was, so obviously has experience with this kind of roles from 300, but anyway. But yeah, like the main thing, this is like the drawback, I suppose. I forget the name of the actor who plays Hiccup. I just think of him as Wilbur Soot because he looks like him. But yeah, that's probably the only casting I would complain about, because again, with all the lines that were so similar to the animated version, with the animated version, obviously, you know, when I'm casting a live action version, this happened in like the One Piece TV show, you have the issue where some like more out there designs, let's say, end up having to be condensed in some way. You know, Nick Frost did a fantastic job as Bokun, but obviously the animated Bokun was a much bulkier guy to a comedic degree. I think his head was also like way further down and such. So, you know, another thing was like, okay, obviously that's going to happen. In terms of Hiccup, it happened, but I don't think it needed to necessarily. I know that child actors are very difficult to work with sometimes, depending on who you are, actually. But I think it was probably a mistake to not go that angle. Purely on the grounds that since there was so much that was taken from the other movie, there didn't seem like much of a reason to disregard Hiccup right from the get-go, because he looks, you know, physically a lot like some of the others, you know, in the background. Perhaps with less muscle than some of them, but to be honest, there were a couple characters there. Again, forgot the character's name in English, but Mogoso particularly. He was he particularly was, you know, even shorter, I think, and he was like the main bully. He actually reminded me a little bit of Flash Thompson from was it Far From Home? Yeah, Spider-Man Far From Home, because they did the same thing they did there, where instead of like going the physical bully route, they kind of went with a bit more psychological, but also made him more pathetic and showed why he was so desperate to prove himself or to you know, put someone else down. I think that seems to be like a new direction they're taking with you know, existing bullies and existing franchises. I'm not sure. But yeah, that part didn't strike me too much. But the thing is, the reason I'm calling out Hiccup specifically, not because he was bad in the movie, far from it. Fantastic. It's just that because of, again, it's directly taken from that adaptation, it stands up because a lot of the things that happen, a lot of the reasons he's disregarded, a lot of the reasons he's like, you know, put down by everyone and not listened to, is because he was a scrawny child. Emphasis on the child part. It's, you know, it's unfortunately a similar problem they ran into when casting the Percy Jackson movies that no one likes to talk about. And part of the reason no one likes to talk about them, you know, because, you know, Logan Lerman, fantastic actor, miscast for that particular role. Which is a problem that they only have in live action, because obviously Jay Baruchel was far from a child when he voiced Hiccup, but again, it's voice acting, you get away with that kind of thing. Again, in D&D, I voice I voice a white female druid, and I'm far from that particularly, but no one cares. Yeah. And also Glamour Icon, which I'm far from, so, you know. So I'm trying to figure out where to go now. But yeah, the reason but again, it didn't work here because, like, of how the movie was structured. Because, you know, him being a child and being, you know, like, a lot of it is a classic case of, yeah, it's a fantastical world and I don't know something, but, you know, the idea of a child not being listened to by a parent who is trying to protect them, set in their ways, some of that falls apart by him not being a child and, you know, kind of being the equivalent of either a whiny teenager or a whiny young adult. So that aspect there, I think, was kind of a mistake. Because it's like, okay, well, you seem to have missed out on far more training than you're supposed to at this particular point. If that's one of the aspects behind it, why would they not have gone this direction by this stage in his life, compared to the stage of life he was in the animated one? So that's the only thing that took me out of that situation. The only thing where I'm like, okay, if like, of all the changes they made here, all the small things, you know, some things should be kept small, mainly your lead actor. But yeah, if that aspect doesn't bother you, then I see no reason not to recommend this film. Obviously, the effects have improved significantly. It is actually a lot of, like I said before, there's so many small changes because it's almost another frame-by-frame recreation, which is something that I know that Disney got a lot of flack for, but considering the stuff they're trying to do now, Disney absolutely has, you know, probably misses those days particularly, when people complain about them, you know, investing so much money in essentially reshooting stuff they'd already done in a different medium. And yeah, there is that critique, I suppose, that it is so very similar. But I think it's similar, but it's okay, because, you know, like what the few things that I think it does differently, that I remember doing differently, are mostly improvements, or just like small things that, if you don't consider them to be improvements, you can easily ignore them. It's also an aspect that, you know, How to Train Your Dragon is such a beloved franchise, people don't want to change much about it, so they don't really have a reason to. And also it's interesting because I think DreamWorks have definitely learned from Disney, because their company was made to protest against Disney to some degree, and also because the first version of the film was 3D rather than 2D. It also means that they don't have the issues of you know, things looking vastly different or much uglier or whatever than they did in a cute drawing, because they never were cute drawings to begin with. So yeah, I feel like this kind of story kind of like works for 3D more than 2D, especially because 3D animation is shot very similarly to live action anyway. So this kind of thing I feel like is less distracting. If you don't like something being functionally the same movie, then by all means just watch the other one. But if you're okay with that, if you're like, oh, you know, I enjoyed this, and you know, I'm interested to see that, you know, how it stacks up, or you know, I'd love to see this kind of thing on the big screen again, then of all the animated films, the live action remakes of animated films to support, I would say go with this one. You are unlikely to regret it. Again, unless you're not into that kind of thing anyway, in which case disregard everything I said, but you know. So yeah, positive experience to start off. I mean, even my parents as well left the theatre, who, bear in mind, they say that nearly everything we watch in that cinema, because it offers like 4 different films a year, so most of the stuff is, you know, the typical like blockbusters or such, you know, they almost say that they call like everything ridiculous. But the fact that we're invested in this particular one compared to the many others we've watched in that cinema that just, you know, get the, oh, this is just ridiculous, but you know, at least I could follow along with it critique, that should say something. You know, I am much more easily pleased than they are, so take that for what you will. And with that, I need to get back because I've gone for more than 45 minutes, and I need to get back and edit out the part where I said the bride's name by accident, and also set up for the D&D stream. So there you go. So for now, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.